The day my parents sat me down and told me they were getting divorced, my whole world turned upside down. I was only 12, and I thought divorces were for couples who fought all the time. You know, the ones who screamed about money and slammed doors. But my parents were always so polite to each other. Sure, we hadn't been on a family outing in a while, but I figured they were just busy. "Candy," my mom said, her voice weirdly calm. "Your father and I have something to tell you." I looked at them, sitting there on the couch, a careful distance between them. Dad cleared his throat. "We've decided to get divorced," he said, like he was announcing we were having pizza for dinner. I blinked, waiting for the punchline. But it never came. "What?" I finally managed to squeak out. "But why?" Mom reached out and patted my hand. "Sometimes, people grow apart, sweetie. Your father and I, we've found other people we want to be with." Dad nodded. "I'll be moving out soon. You'll live with your mother, but you'll stay with me sometimes too." I sat there, trying to process this bombshell. My parents were leaving each other for other people? And I was supposed to just, what? Go along with it? "Who are these other people?" I asked, my voice sounding small and far away. Mom smiled, and I noticed for the first time how it didn't quite reach her eyes. "You'll meet them soon. My friend has 2 daughters about your age. Won't that be nice?" Nice? My parents were blowing up our family, and I was supposed to think it was nice? "And my partner has a son," Dad added, like he was sweetening the deal. I stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over the coffee table. "I don't want new sisters or brothers. I want us to stay together." I ran to my room and slammed the door, throwing myself on the bed. I could hear them talking in low voices downstairs, probably figuring out how to rearrange my life some more. I thought about the last few months, how Mom and Dad had taken me out separately. I'd go to the movies with Dad one weekend, then to a cafe with Mom the next. I thought it was cool, getting one-on-one time with each of them. Now I realized it was just the beginning of the end. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Dad packed his bags and moved out, heading off to live with his new wife. Apparently, they'd already gotten married in some quickie ceremony. She had a son, just like Dad had said. Meanwhile, Mom's new husband moved in with us. He brought his twin daughters, who were a year younger than me. At first, I was kind of excited. I'd always wanted a sister to share secrets with, to stay up late talking about boys and life and all that stuff. The day they moved in, I tried to be friendly. I smiled at the girls and said, "Hey, I'm Candy. Want me to show you around?" The taller one, I think her name was Brittany, looked me up and down like I was something stuck to her shoe. "No thanks," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "We don't need your help." Her sister nodded in agreement. "Yeah, and just so we're clear, we're not your sisters. You're just extra." Extra. The word hit me like a slap in the face. I stood there, mouth open, as they brushed past me, giggling to themselves. That night, I lay in bed, listening to the sounds of my new family settling in. I felt like a stranger in my own home. The next day, things got worse. I came home from school to find the twins wearing my clothes. "Hey," I said, shocked. "Those are mine." Brittany rolled her eyes. "Mom said we could borrow them." "Don't be so selfish." I looked to Mom for backup, but she just smiled. "Now, Candy, sharing is caring. The girls just want to feel welcome." Welcome? They were wearing my favorite shirt. I stomped up to my room, fighting back tears. As the days passed, it became clear that I was no longer the center of Mom's world. She doted on the twins, buying them new clothes and toys. My stuff started disappearing, given away to my new sisters without my permission. One day, I overheard Mom talking to her new husband. "The girls need new phones," she was saying. "We could use the money we set aside for Candy's birthday." My birthday. She was going to skip my birthday for them. When the day came, Mom barely remembered. "Oh, honey," she said distractedly when I reminded her. I'm so sorry, but the girls have a big sports event today. We'll celebrate another time, okay? But we never did. I thought things might be better at Dad's place, where I stayed every other weekend. But I was wrong about that too. Dad's new wife was pregnant, and she had no time for me. And her son? He was a nightmare. One night, I woke up to a tickling sensation on my face. I opened my eyes and saw a huge spider sitting on my nose. I screamed, flailing around in panic. The whole house came running. As the lights flicked on, I saw it wasn't a real spider, but a plastic toy. And there was Dad's stepson, grinning in the doorway. What's going on? Dad's wife demanded, her pregnant belly leading the way as she waddled into the room. Candy woke us all up with her screaming, the boy said innocently. Over a toy. You little, I started, but Dad's wife cut me off. Honestly, Candy, what is wrong with you? Are you some kind of hysterical lunatic? I turned to Dad, expecting him to defend me. But he just stood there, looking uncomfortable. He put it there, I insisted. He knows I'm afraid of spiders. Don't be ridiculous, his wife snapped. Stop lying and go to sleep. I don't want to see you for the rest of the night. I looked at Dad again, silently begging him to say something, anything. But he just sighed and said, I'll take you home in the morning, Candy. As they all filed out, leaving me alone in the dark, I realized something. I didn't have a home anymore. I was alone. Life at Mom's house didn't get any better. The twins, emboldened by Mom's constant praise and attention, became downright cruel. One afternoon, I came home to find my favorite mug shattered on the kitchen floor. The twins were standing there, looking innocent as angels. Oh, Candy, Brittany said, her voice syrupy sweet. We're so sorry. We were just trying to make you some tea, and it slipped. I knew it was a lie. They'd never done anything nice for me, let alone make me tea. But before I could say anything, Mom and my stepdad walked in. What's going on here? Mom asked, eyeing the mess on the floor. Candy broke her mug, the other twin piped up. She got angry and smashed it. My stepdad's face darkened. Without a word, he grabbed my arm and led me to the small storage room at the end of the hall. It was dark and musty, filled with old boxes and forgotten junk. You'll stay in here until you learn to control your temper, he said, pushing me inside. But I didn't do anything. I cried, but he just shut the door, leaving me in darkness. I heard giggling outside the door. It was the twins. Hey, Candy, one of them called through the wood. Did you know this room is full of spiders? Big, hairy ones that come out in the dark. I huddled in the corner, trying not to panic. I knew they were lying, but the darkness seemed to crawl around me. Every little sound made me jump. Hours passed. Nobody came to let me out, not even Mom. When the door finally opened, it was morning. Mom stood there, looking tired. I hope you've learned your lesson, she said. Now get ready for school. I tried to tell her what really happened, but she just waved me off. That was when I realized Mom would always believe them over me. I started spending more and more time at my Aunt Sarah's house. She was Dad's sister, and she lived with her husband, Uncle Tom. They didn't have kids of their own, so they were always happy to see me. At first, I'd just visit for a few hours after school. But those hours turned into days, and soon I was spending weeks at a time with them. One day, after I'd been at Aunt Sarah's for almost a month, my teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, showed up at Mom's house for a home visit. I wasn't there, of course, but I heard about it later from a neighbor kid who saw the whole thing. Mrs. Rodriguez knocked on the door, looking concerned. When Mom answered, the teacher asked to see me. Oh, Candy's with her father this week, Mom said dismissively. Mrs. Rodriguez frowned. That's odd. I just called Mr. Johnson, and he said Candy was living with you. Mom's face went pale. What? But, I thought. Mrs. Rodriguez was furious. She contacted Child Protective Services, and before I knew it, we were all headed to court. I sat in the courtroom, now 14 years old, watching as my parents argued over who should take care of me. But it wasn't the kind of argument I'd expected. "You take her," Dad shouted at Mom. "I have a small child. I don't have time for a teenager." Mom scoffed. "Are you kidding? I have a life now. I can't deal with Candy's drama." I sat there, feeling smaller and smaller as they tossed me back and forth like a hot potato. Neither of them wanted me. But then, Aunt Sarah stood up. "Your Honor," she said, her voice clear and strong. "If I may, Tom and I would like to take custody of Candy." The courtroom went silent. I looked at Aunt Sarah in shock. She smiled at me, then turned back to the judge. She handed some papers to the judge. "These documents show our financial stability. I'm a teacher, and Tom's a doctor. We can provide for Candy in every way." The judge looked over the papers, then looked at me. "Candy," he said gently, "you're old enough to have a say in this. Who do you want to live with?" I didn't hesitate. "Aunt Sarah and Uncle Tom," I said, my voice shaking but certain. I saw the relief on my parents' faces. They didn't even try to hide it. Over the next few weeks, I settled into my new life. Aunt Sarah and Uncle Tom weren't just taking care of me, they were parenting me. They asked about my day, helped me with my homework, and actually listened when I talked. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Uncle Tom asked, "So, Candy, what should we call each other now? We're officially your guardians." I thought for a moment. These people had shown me more love in a few weeks than my own parents had in years. Could I call you Mom and Dad?" I asked hesitantly. Aunt Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, sweetie, we'd be honored." From that day on, they were Mom and Dad to me. My birth parents became distant memories, people I thought about less and less as time went on. My new life wasn't just about Aunt Sarah and Uncle Tom, though. I also got to know Uncle Tom's mother, my new grandmother. She lived nearby and quickly became one of my favorite people in the world. Grandma was a retired doctor, and she had this way of making everything interesting. We'd spend hours in her garden, planting vegetables and flowers while she told me stories about her days in the hospital. And I realized I also want to become a doctor. With Grandma's help and the unwavering support of my new parents, I threw myself into my studies. Before I knew it, it was time for high school graduation. As I stood in my cap and gown, scanning the audience, I saw the faces of the people who truly mattered, Mom, Dad, and Grandma, all beaming with pride. My birth parents weren't there. They hadn't even sent a card. I applied to medical college and, to my delight, got accepted on a full scholarship. Life was good. I had a loving family, a clear goal, and a bright future ahead of me. 3 years flew by in a whirlwind of lectures, late-night study sessions, and clinical rotations. Every time I put on my white coat, I felt a surge of pride, knowing I was living the dream Grandma had helped nurture. That's why, when Mom, Aunt Sarah, called me that rainy Tuesday afternoon, I knew something was terribly wrong before she even spoke. "Candy, honey," she said, her voice cracking. "It's Grandma. She's gone." The world stopped spinning. Grandma? Gone? It couldn't be. We had plans to review my latest paper this weekend. She was supposed to be at my graduation in a year. The next few days passed in a blur of tears and hushed conversations. As we gathered for the funeral, I stood between Mom and Dad, Aunt Sarah and Uncle Tom, feeling like a little girl again, lost and scared. But then came the reading of the will. To my beloved granddaughter, Candy, the lawyer read, "I leave my entire estate, including my house and all my savings, amounting of $1,980,000. I gasped, looking around the room in shock. This had to be a mistake. But Mom and Dad were nodding, small smiles on their tear-stained faces. "Grandma talked to us about this," Dad explained later. "She wanted to make sure you had a solid foundation for your future. We agreed it was the right thing to do." As the dust settled and I tried to come to terms with my newfound wealth, life threw me another curveball. My phone started ringing with unfamiliar numbers. When I finally answered one, I nearly dropped the phone in shock. "Candy?" Hi, it's your mother. I hadn't heard her voice in years. Before I could respond, she rushed on. I've been thinking about you so much lately. How are you? Where are you studying? We should catch up. Over the next few days, similar calls came in from my birth father. Suddenly, they were both intensely interested in my life, asking to meet, talking about how much they missed me. Confused and a little suspicious, I mentioned it to Mom and Dad over dinner one night. To my surprise, they burst out laughing. "Oh, Candy," Mom said, wiping tears of mirth from her eyes. "I hate to say it, but I think they might have caught wind of your inheritance." Part of me wanted to ignore them, to pretend I'd never got those calls. But another part, a part one thought I'd long since buried, was curious. What would it be like to see them again? To show them the woman I'd become without their help? Maybe I should meet them, I said slowly. Just to see what they want. Mom and Dad exchanged a look. "If that's what you want to do, we'll support you," Mom said. "But be careful, sweetie. People can surprise you, and not always in a good way." The next day, I found myself standing on the familiar porch of my childhood home. I took a deep breath and rang the doorbell. The door swung open, and there she was, my birth mother. For a moment, we just stared at each other. "Candy," she breathed, her eyes welling up with tears. "Oh, my baby girl." She pulled me into a hug that felt stiff and awkward. Over her shoulder, I could see my stepfather and the twins hovering in the background, plastered on smiles on their faces. Come in," my mother urged, ushering me inside. Dinner was a strange affair. The twins were sickeningly sweet, a far cry from the cruel girls I remembered. "We're so glad you're here, Candy," one of them simpered, Brittany, I think. "We've missed you so much." I caught the flash of irritation in her eyes that belied her words, but I just smiled and nodded. As we ate, the conversation took a turn. My mother glanced around the dining room, sighing dramatically. "This old house," she said, shaking her head. "It's seen better days, hasn't it? The roof needs replacing, and don't even get me started on the plumbing." I took a sip of water, saying nothing. My stepfather chimed in. "And of course, with the girls heading to college soon, well, you know how expensive that can be." I pretended to be very interested in my mashed potatoes. "It's such a shame," my mother continued, her voice dripping with fake concern. "The girls are so bright, but with our financial situation." She trailed off, looking at me expectantly. I met her gaze evenly, but said nothing. The silence stretched on, growing more uncomfortable by the second. Finally, I decided to change the subject. "So," I said brightly, "I've been wondering. What grades did I graduate high school with?" "I can't quite remember." The color drained from my mother's face. She opened and closed her mouth a few times, looking like a fish out of water. "Well, it was so long ago." Well, my version was completely confirmed. She didn't know anything about my life, my achievements, my struggles. All she knew was that I had money now. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. "I think I know why you invited me here," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "It's about my inheritance, isn't it?" The room went silent. My stepfather's face turned red, and the twins suddenly found their plates very interesting. "How can you say that?" my mother gasped, but her eyes gave her away. There was no warmth there, no motherly love. Just calculation and disappointment. "Now, Candy," my stepfather started, but I cut him off. "No. I'm done here. Don't contact me again." And with that, I walked out into the cool night air, leaving behind the echoes of their angry shouts and my own past. I didn't need their approval or their love. I had a real family waiting for me at home. Just a few days later, I found myself standing at my father's front door. The door swung open, revealing my stepmother. Her face contorted into what I assumed was meant to be a welcoming smile, but looked more like she'd just bitten into a lemon. I forced a smile back and stepped inside. As we moved into the living room, I noticed a teenage boy lounging on the couch. He looked up as we entered, and I recognized him instantly, the spider thrower. He'd grown up quite a bit, and to my surprise, he gave me a genuinely friendly smile. "Hey, Candy," he said, standing up. "Long time no see. I'm Jake, in case you forgot." Before I could respond, a whirlwind of pigtails and glitter burst into the room. A little girl, no more than 8, skidded to a stop in front of me, her eyes wide. "Who are you?" she demanded. My father, looking older and more tired, cleared his throat. "Lily, this is your sister, Candy." We settled into an awkward conversation, my stepmother peppering me with questions about my life that I answered as vaguely as possible. Jake, surprisingly, seemed genuinely interested, asking about my medical studies with what appeared to be real curiosity. As the evening wore on, I could feel the conversation steering towards the real reason for this reunion. My father kept glancing at my stepmother, who would nod slightly, urging him on. Finally, he cleared his throat. "So, Candy," he began, his voice overly casual. "We heard about your windfall." I tensed, waiting for what was coming next. "You know, Lily here is quite the little genius," he continued. "We've been thinking of sending her to this prestigious private school, but, well, it's not cheap." I said nothing, my face carefully blank. My stepmother jumped in. "What your father is trying to say, Candy, is that we could use some help. For Lily's future, you understand." I took a deep breath, feeling my patience wearing thin. "Why now?" I asked, looking directly at my father. "Why are you only remembering me now that I have money?" The room went deadly silent. Even Lily, who had been playing with her dolls, seemed to sense the tension. My father started to stammer out an excuse, but my stepmother's face suddenly twisted with anger. "Now you listen here," she hissed, all pretense of kindness gone. "You're obligated to help your family. If you don't, we'll take you to court. We'll demand our share of that money. You owe us." I couldn't help it, I laughed. "Actually," I said, standing up, "according to the law, you're not my family at all. You abandoned me, remember? Aunt Sarah and Uncle Tom are my legal parents now." As I walked out the door, I heard my stepmother's shrill voice and my father's angry shouts, but I didn't look back. I got into my car and drove away, feeling a mix of emotions, sadness, anger, but mostly relief. In the days following my visits to my birth parents, my phone buzzed incessantly. Calls, texts, and voicemails poured in from both of them, each more desperate than the last. "Candy, please," my mother's voice pleaded in one message. "We're about to lose the house. We'll be on the streets. Don't you care?" My father's approaches ranged from guilt-tripping to outright demands. "After everything we've done for you," one text read, "this is how you repay us?" I let them all go unanswered. I focused instead on my studies, throwing myself into my final year of college with renewed determination. One evening, as I was poring over a particularly complex cardiology textbook, my phone lit up with an unfamiliar number. Hesitantly, I answered. "Hello? Candy? It's Jake. You know, your, stepbrother, I guess? Look, I know this is weird, but I wanted to apologize. For the spider thing, years ago. It was a really crappy thing to do." I found myself smiling despite everything. "Jake, that was ages ago. Water under the bridge." "No, really," he insisted. "I've felt bad about it for years. I wanted to say sorry sooner, but you never came back after that. And I swear, this isn't about the money or anything. I guess I wanted you to know I'm not that stupid kid anymore." His sincerity was touching. "I appreciate that, Jake, really." We ended up talking for over an hour. Jake was in his first year of college, studying engineering. He was funny and self-deprecating, nothing like the bratty kid I remembered. By the end of the call, we'd agreed to meet up for coffee the next week. As the months passed, Jake and I developed a genuine friendship. It was strange, finding a connection with someone from my past life, but it felt good. We met regularly for coffee or study sessions, and he became a supportive presence in my life. Meanwhile, my life was moving forward at a dizzying pace. The long nights and grueling exams were worth it when I finally stood on stage, accepting my college diploma. As I looked out into the audience, I saw Mom, Dad, and Jake cheering wildly. My heart swelled with joy and gratitude. As for my birth parents, their messages eventually tapered off. I heard through Jake that they were struggling financially, but I kept my distance. It wasn't out of spite or anger anymore, just a recognition that we were on different paths. One day, as Jake and I were grabbing coffee, he mentioned his little sister, my half-sister, Lily. "She's really smart," he said. "Always reading, asking questions about everything. But my dad and stepmom, they're not exactly encouraging it." I thought about the bright-eyed little girl I'd met briefly. "Maybe," I said slowly, "I could help with her education. Set up a college fund or something. Not for them, but for her." As I drove home that evening, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The pain, the abandonment, the unexpected inheritance, it had all led me to this moment. I was Dr. Candy Johnson now, with a bright future in medicine ahead of me. I had a family who loved me, a true friend in Jake, and the means to make a difference in a young girl's life.
Hi everyone, I'm Mia, and I'm 28. Family has always been everything to me. Sunday dinners, movie nights, you name it. My brother Ryan and I were inseparable growing up. He was always my partner in crime, like when I snuck out for that concert in high school. Life was pretty great, honestly. Then, one night at dinner, Ryan dropped a bombshell. "I'm getting married," he announced with the biggest grin. I nearly choked on my pasta. "To who?" I managed to ask. "Megan Foster," he replied, looking all dreamy. I'd met Megan a few times. She was nice, if a little quiet. But hey, who was I to judge? I was thrilled for Ryan. He deserved someone special. Mom practically melted with happiness, and Dad gave him a proud pat on the back. I jumped up to hug him, genuinely happy. Little did I know, though, this was the start of a total nightmare. At first, everything was fine. Megan and I went dress shopping and laughed over Ryan's terrible dance moves at their engagement party. But then subtle things started to feel off. Megan would make these small comments when Ryan wasn't around. Once I suggested a song for their first dance, and she chuckled. "Oh, Mia, we'll let people with real taste choose the music." I brushed it off, assuming she was just stressed about wedding planning. But it kept happening. She'd leave me out of bridesmaid emails or change plans last minute without telling me. One day, while I was helping Mom with the seating chart, Megan walked in. "Oh, Mia, didn't expect to see you here," she said, her voice dripping with forced sweetness. She made it sound like I should have been too busy with my job to be involved. When I tried talking to Ryan, he shrugged. "Come on, Mia," he said. "Megan's great. You're probably just imagining things." But I wasn't, and it was starting to drive me crazy. At the bridal shower, Megan accidentally spilled red wine all over my favorite white blouse. "Oops. Guess you can thank me. White is so boring," she laughed. I forced a smile, but inside, I was fuming. This wasn't the Megan Ryan had introduced us to. This was someone else entirely. And I had a feeling it was only going to get worse. It didn't take long for family rumors to start swirling. Aunt Karen pulled me aside one day, her voice low. "Mia, sweetie, is everything okay with you and Ryan?" I was taken aback. "Why wouldn't it be?" I asked. "Well," she whispered, "Megan mentioned that you might be having trouble letting go." I was floored. Megan was spreading rumors about me to my own family. The real tipping point came at the bridesmaid dress fitting. I overheard Megan saying to a friend, "I'm just so embarrassed by the way Mia flirts with Jake." I stormed out, furious. "Excuse me? I've been with Alex for 2 years. What are you even talking about?" Megan looked at me with fake innocence. "Oh, Mia, I didn't see you there. I was just worried. You know, about how you act around Jake." And yet the worst was still to come. At the rehearsal dinner, things finally seemed okay. I was chatting with Jake and Alex, relaxing for the first time in days, when Megan suddenly tripped and dumped an entire glass of red wine down my dress. Everyone fell silent as I stood there, humiliated. Megan gasped dramatically, "Oh my gosh, Mia, I'm so sorry. Looks like someone's had a bit too much to drink." Ryan turned to me, his face conflicted. "Mia, maybe you should go home and get some rest," he said quietly. I couldn't believe it. "Ryan, I've only had 1 glass of champagne all night." Megan did this on purpose. But he just shook his head. Come on, Mia, don't make a scene. I felt like I was going crazy. Couldn't anyone else see what was happening? After that disaster of a rehearsal dinner, I couldn't take it anymore. Desperate for someone to talk to, I called my cousin Lisa. Lisa, I don't know what to do. Megan's turned everyone against me, spreading rumors, sabotaging me at every turn. Now Ryan thinks I'm just some jealous drunk mess. Lisa's voice was sympathetic but cautious. That sounds awful, Mia, but are you sure you're not just misinterpreting things? My heart sank. Even Lisa didn't believe me. Misinterpreting? Lisa, she dumped wine on me and then accused me of being drunk. How was that a misinterpretation? Okay, she said quickly. I believe you. It's just hard to imagine. Megan seems so sweet. I laughed bitterly. Yeah, when Ryan's around. You should see her when he's not. We talked for a while, with me spilling every detail of Megan's behavior over the past few months. When we hung up, I felt a mix of relief and dread. The wedding was tomorrow, and I had no idea how I was going to get through it. One thing was for sure, though, this was far from over. Megan might think she'd won, but I wasn't going down without a fight. The next morning, I arrived at the venue at dawn, determined to talk things out with Ryan. I spotted him near the altar, looking nervous but happy. Hey, big bro, I said, cautiously approaching. Need any help? Ryan gave me a strained smile. Hey, Mia. I think we got it covered. I felt my heart sink but pressed on. Listen, about last night, let me explain. It's my wedding day, Mia. He cut me off. Can we just forget about it? I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Sure, Ryan. Whatever you want. As I turned to leave, I heard Megan's voice from the bridal suite. Curiosity got the better of me, and I crept closer to listen. Girls, you won't believe how easy it was, Megan was saying, her voice dripping with smugness. A few well-placed comments, a little accident with some wine, and bam. Mia's the bad guy, and Ryan's eating out of my hand. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. One of the bridesmaids giggled. But weren't you worried she'd figure it out? Megan scoffed. Please, she's so desperate for Ryan's approval she'd believe anything. By the time this wedding's over, she'll be completely out of the picture. That was it. I'd had enough. I burst into the room, fury radiating off me. So that's your game, huh? Turning my own brother against me for what control? Megan's eyes widened, but then narrowed. Mia, I don't know what you think you heard, but save it. I heard every word. How could you do this to me? To Ryan? Her face twisted into a sneer. Oh, grow up, Mia. Did you really think you could keep Ryan all to yourself forever? He needed to cut the cord sometime. I was so angry I could barely see straight. This isn't about keeping Ryan to myself. This is about you manipulating and lying to everyone. Just then, I heard a gasp behind me. I turned to see Ryan standing in the doorway, his face a mask of confusion and hurt. Ryan, I started, but Megan beat me to it, rushing to his side in tears. Oh, Ryan, thank goodness you're here. Mia just burst in and started accusing me of all these horrible things. She's trying to ruin our wedding day. I couldn't believe it. What? No, Ryan, that's not what happened. She was bragging about how she turned you against me. Ryan looked back and forth between us, clearly overwhelmed. Mia, what are you doing? Why are you trying to cause drama on my wedding day? I'm not. I protested. Ryan, please, you have to believe me. Megan's been manipulating you this whole time. But the look in his eyes told me he didn't believe a word I was saying. Megan's crocodile tears had sealed the deal. Ryan's voice was cold as he spoke. I think you should leave, Mia. I felt like my world was crumbling. Ryan, please, no. He cut me off. I can't believe you tried to steal Megan's spotlight like this. I thought you were better than that. Tears streamed down my face. Ryan, I swear, I'm telling the truth. He shook his head, wrapping an arm around Megan. Just go, Mia. You've done enough damage. I stumbled out of the room, barely able to see through my tears, and ran into Mom and Dad in the hallway. Mia, honey, what's wrong? Mom asked, reaching for me. I shook my head, unable to speak. Somewhere behind me, I heard Alex calling my name. I couldn't face any of them, not now. Without a word, I ran out of the venue, ignoring the shocked looks and hushed whispers around me. As I drove away, I glimpsed Mom and Dad in the rearview mirror, calling after me. But I couldn't turn back. Not after this. The fairy tale was over, and somehow I'd become the villain of the story. After that wedding disaster, I threw myself into work. Months flew by, and I landed a major promotion. Our latest campaign was making waves in the industry, and I finally started feeling like myself again. Then, one night, my phone buzzed with a message from Lisa. "Mia, we need to talk. It's about Ryan and Megan." I hesitated, but agreed to meet her at a nearby cafe. Lisa looked nervous as she slid her phone across the table. "I did something, well, kind of terrible," she confessed. "I recorded our conversation about Megan and played it for Ryan last week." My hands shook as I listened to the recording. Every painful memory, every frustration captured in digital form. "Ryan and Megan have been having issues," Lisa continued softly. "When he heard this, he realized what had happened, Mia. He wants to talk to you." Right on cue, my phone lit up with Ryan's number. I declined the call. "I can't, Lisa. It's too late." Over the next few weeks, I heard through the grapevine that Ryan and Megan were divorcing. Apparently, Megan's manipulative behavior had even extended to her job, where she'd gotten into legal trouble for fraud. Ryan kept trying to reach out, voicemails, texts, even a heartfelt letter. "Mia, I'm so sorry. I should have believed you. Please, can we talk?" But I wasn't ready. The hurt was still too fresh. Instead, I focused on my own life. I had a solid group of friends who genuinely supported me, and Alex had been my rock through everything. One day, as Alex and I were planning a vacation, Mom called. "Honey, did you hear? Ryan and Megan's divorce is final." I took a deep breath. "That's good, Mom. I hope he's okay." "He misses you, sweetie." I looked at Alex, who squeezed my hand supportively. "I know, Mom, but I'm not ready. Maybe someday, but not now." When I hung up, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The drama was over, and I was finally free. I'd survived, thrived, even, and for the first time in a long time, I was genuinely excited for the future, a future on my own terms. That brings us to the end of our story. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hi, I'm Emily Caldwell, 28 years old, and my life's been on hold. For the past 5 years, I've been taking care of my mom, Martha, who has multiple sclerosis. Don't get me wrong, I love her deeply. But it's been tough, especially with my older brother, Jake, the successful real estate agent, always showing up in flashy suits and fancy cars. He's quick to tell me I'm doing everything wrong. But when it comes to helping, crickets. One morning, Jake leaned against the kitchen counter, watching me prepare Mom's breakfast. "Emily, you're not giving Mom her meds on time," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. I rolled my eyes, grabbing her pill container. "I literally just did, Jake. Want to check the schedule I keep?" "No need to get defensive," he smirked. "I'm just looking out for Mom." "Right," I muttered, thinking of his luxurious penthouse across town. "Looking out for Mom from there, huh?" Jake's latest scheme involves managing our finances, which really means giving me pocket change while he lives large. Sliding a few bills across the table, he said, "Here's your allowance for the week." "Allowance? I'm not 12, Jake," I snapped. "This barely covers groceries and Mom's supplies." He shrugged. "Budget better. I'm investing Mom's disability checks. It's for her future." I bit my tongue, but inside, I was boiling. Later, I found out he'd been pocketing most of that money. Some investment. The one bright spot through all of this, my best friend, Olivia. She's been my rock. "Emily, you can't keep putting your life on hold," she said one afternoon over coffee. "Remember that marketing exec position you always dreamed of." I sighed, stirring my latte. How am I supposed to go for that when Mom needs me? There are other options for care. "You deserve a life too," Olivia insisted. Her words lingered with me. That night, after Mom had fallen asleep, I quietly applied for jobs online. But my resolve wavered when minutes later I heard her calling, "Emily, honey, can you help me?" I closed my laptop, sighing as I headed to her room. She was reaching for her water glass on the nightstand, just out of reach. "Sorry to bother you, sweetie," she said. "I just can't quite reach it." "You're not a bother, Mom," I said, gently adjusting her pillows. "Never." "You're such a good daughter, Em." I don't know what I'd do without you." Her words made my heart ache, a bittersweet reminder of the guilt and love tangled together. But the next morning, I woke up feeling different, like something big was on the horizon. Today was my interview with Apex Marketing, one of the top firms in the city. I'd been preparing in secret for weeks. As I slipped into my best blazer, a surge of excitement and guilt washed over me. I deserved this shock. But when I turned my car key, I was greeted with silence. "No, no, no," I muttered, trying again. Nothing. That's when Jake appeared, all smiles. "Car trouble, sis. No worries, I'll drive you." I was suspicious, but what choice did I have? In the car, I pulled out my phone to review my notes, only to find it dead. "That's odd. My phone's dead," I said, frowning. Jake reached over, offering his charger. "Here, use mine. It'll juice up in no time." Maybe he wasn't so bad after all, I thought, as we pulled up to the Apex building with 15 minutes to spare. "You've got this, Emily," Jake said, squeezing my shoulder. "Thanks, Jake, really," I replied, feeling a glimmer of hope as I walked into the lobby. But the receptionist's frown said it all. "Emily Caldwell?" she asked, glancing at her screen. "You're an hour late, and we received a call saying you canceled." My stomach plummeted. "What? That's impossible. I'm right on time, and I never called to cancel." She looked sympathetic but firm. "I'm sorry, but Mr. Thompson has moved on to another meeting. We can't reschedule." Devastated, I stumbled out of the building, my dreams crumbling around me. The drive home was silent. I couldn't bring myself to speak, replaying everything in my mind, wondering where it all went wrong. Then later that evening, I overheard Jake on the phone, his voice low and smug. "Yeah, it worked perfectly. She has no idea." As I hid in the hallway, I heard Jake's voice low and smug through the cracked door. "She'll be stuck here taking care of Mom forever." My blood ran cold. Quietly, I slipped out to the garage, my instincts screaming something was wrong. I examined my car, clear as day. There were signs of tampering. Back in my room, I checked my phone. The battery had been completely drained, far more than normal. But the final nail in the coffin was the call log, an outgoing call to Apex Marketing that morning when my phone had supposedly been dead. The realization hit like a punch. Jake had sabotaged everything: my car, my phone, my interview, my chance at freedom. I sank onto my bed, shaking with anger and disbelief. How could he do this to me, his own sister? But as the shock faded, something else took its place. Determination. If Jake thought this would keep me under his thumb forever, he had another thing coming. I opened my laptop, fingers flying across the keys as I started planning. Jake might have won this round, but I was far from defeated. This wasn't just about a job anymore. It was about taking back control of my life. I spent the night sleepless, my mind racing with plans and anger. By morning, I was ready to confront Jake, but I needed proof first. While he was out, I sneaked into his home office, searching for anything suspicious. That's when I found it, a hidden compartment in his desk drawer. Inside was a burner phone and a stack of documents. My hands shook as I sifted through them, piecing together a shocking truth. Jake wasn't just embezzling Mom's money. He was involved in a massive real estate fraud scheme. The documents revealed fake properties, shell companies, and laundered millions. The most chilling part, a list of names including high-profile politicians and businessmen. I quickly snapped photos of everything and put it back exactly as I'd found it, heart pounding as I left the office. Later, I confronted him. "Cut the crap, Jake. I know what you did, and I know why." His face flickered with surprise before shifting to Fox innocence. "What are you talking about?" he said. "The car, the phone, the call to Apex. You sabotaged my interview." Jake scoffed. "You're paranoid, Em. Why would I do that?" "Oh, I don't know. Maybe to keep me here as your perfect family alibi while you run your little fraud scheme." His face went pale. "What? What are you talking about?" I leaned in close, voice low. "Shell companies, fake properties, money laundering. Ring any bells?" His eyes widened, panic flaring in his gaze. "How did you? And let's not forget your little black book of corrupt officials. That's quite an insurance policy, isn't it?" Jake's desperation turned cold as he grabbed my arm. "You don't understand," he hissed. "I'm in too deep. These people, they're dangerous. If I go down, we all do." I pulled my arm free, glaring. So you decided to ruin my life to save your own skin. I'm protecting us. If you leave and start a new life, it'll raise questions. I need to look like a devoted family man. It's the only thing keeping us safe. I lost it. You selfish bastard. You've been lying, stealing, putting our family at risk, all for your own greed. His face twisted with anger, but he tried to keep control. Watch it, Em. We're in this together now. One word from you, and it's over for all of us. Little did he know, I was recording every word on my phone, hidden in my pocket. After the confrontation, I told Mom everything. The fraud scheme, the dangerous connections, the sabotage. Her face crumpled in disbelief, then steeled with anger. That boy, she muttered, shaking her head. I knew something was off, but this, Emily, we have to report him. I hesitated. Are you sure, Mom? This could get dangerous. I raised him better than this. He needs to face the consequences, no matter who he's involved with. Together, we called the authorities. With shaking hands, Mom dialed the FBI's tip line. Hello, this is Martha Caldwell. I need to report a major fraud scheme involving my son, Jake Caldwell, and several high-profile individuals. As Mom hung up the phone, I felt a flood of emotions, fear, relief, and pride. For the first time in years, I didn't just see her as someone frail or in need of care. She was the strong, fearless woman I'd always admired. She turned to me, eyes filled with determination. We did the right thing, Emily, no matter what happens next. I hugged her tightly. It's okay, Mom. We're going to get through this together. After Mom and I reported Jake, the FBI moved quickly. His office was raided, and soon, his face was plastered across local news. The phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, angry clients, even some of Jake's business associates, all trying to figure out what we knew. One morning, as I made breakfast for Mom, my phone rang with an unknown number. Hello, this is Emily Caldwell. Hi, Emily. This is Sarah Thompson from Apex Marketing. We heard about your situation on the news and were very impressed by your resilience. My heart skipped a beat. Oh, thank you. I'm so sorry about the interview mix-up. No need to apologize, Sarah said warmly. In fact, we'd like to offer you a job, if you're still interested. I nearly dropped the phone. Are you serious? Yes, absolutely. After I hung up, I danced around the kitchen, tears of joy streaming down my face. Mom wheeled herself in, a smile tugging at her lips. What's all the commotion about? I shared the good news, and her face lit up. Oh, Emily, that's wonderful. But what about me? That conversation opened up possibilities we hadn't considered before. Mom, what if we got some help here at home? I suggested gently. I can use part of my new salary to pay for a caregiver to come for a few hours each day. Mom looked uncertain. I don't want to be a burden on your new life, Emily. I took her hand, squeezing it reassuringly. You're not a burden, Mom. This way, you can stay in your own home, and I can pursue my career knowing you're well taken care of. A week later, I settled into my new job just a short drive from home. As I wrapped up my first day, my phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. Celebration dinner this weekend, no excuses. We're toasting to your new beginning. I smiled, feeling a blend of relief and excitement. It wasn't perfect, but we'd found a balance that worked for everyone. We'd been through hell, but we'd come out stronger. Jake's trial was looming, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid. Whatever came next, I knew we could face it together. What would you do? If you discovered a family member was involved in a dangerous criminal scheme, would you report them to the authorities knowing it could tear your family apart? Or would you try to handle it privately to protect your loved ones? Share your thoughts in the comments below.